Some more changes in the Sabres organization, and could we see a John Tortorella size change? That coming up on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody, and welcome into this Saturday edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can watch our show on YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe if you are looking to watch along, and you can also become a part of our Locked On Sabres Everydayers Club, which is a lot of fun in our Discord. You also can get ad-free versions of this show. You want to sign up for that? Head over to lockedonsabres.supercast.com to sign up. Today's episode is presented by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Sneaky Joe DiBiase here on a game day. We got a game to talk about, a win over the Philadelphia Flyers. We've got a move in the front office to talk about. We've got a coaching thing that I want to get into. As if you watched on the broadcast, John Tortorella had his chance to share a lot of his opinions about the Buffalo Sabres. And we have a move in the front office here on a game day, as the Sabres will be hosting the New York Islanders. We'll get into that a little bit as well. Try to keep our bet of the night rolling a little bit. We did get there with our Sabres minus 1.5 goals against the Flyers. It took every second of the game, right down to Ryan McLeod in the final 2 seconds to get the empty netter and get that little cover. But a game that I want to talk about because I did not think it was going to go as well as it ended up going after watching the first period, but man, they were good in the third. So all that coming up on today's episode of the podcast. But let's start with the breaking news in the front office. Jarmo Kekalainen making his first significant change as general manager of the Buffalo Sabres, and it is within that front office. He is relieving Jason Karmanos of his duties. Jason Karmanos, longtime associate general manager of the Buffalo Sabres, really the entirety of Kevyn Adams' tenure in Buffalo. Karmanos has been here. Also, the general manager of the Rochester Americans was part of his duties as well. And listen, I get it, because this is probably not a person that Kekalainen has really worked that much with. So thinking that Jarmo would just go with all the same people that were around him, both the coaching and the front office, was probably not going to happen. He's going to want his own guys, people that he's comfortable with, people that he has worked with before. I have never really been someone that has looked down upon Karmanos. I always thought he was more qualified to be the general manager than Kevyn Adams was. And honestly, the Amherst had pretty good results throughout the entirety of the time that he was there. So I wouldn't want to blame him for that. But certainly the impact of him coming in, being data-driven, he built that department in Pittsburgh and having that translate to more success in Buffalo, I mean, that never really happened. So I'm not going to shed a tear for Karmanos leaving the building. I was expecting that you probably would see them move on from him. And if he had stayed, I might have thought that that's a bad sign because, there's Terry Pegula making Kekalainen keep all the same people that were employed because he doesn't want to pay people to not work for him. So I guess it's a little sign that, yes, he has autonomy in the front office, and hopefully that will continue. The thing, though, that I really want to get into today about shakeups and what we could see coming forward is whether or not John Tortorella is a serious idea for the Buffalo Sabres and whether or not that is going to happen. It was funny that if I was at the game, but I saw a lot of reaction on the broadcast and I went back and watched a lot of it. Emily Kaplan kind of maybe half kiddingly before the game pressing Torts on, have you heard from the Sabres? They call you? You've worked with Jarmo before. And Tortorella did not want to get into it. He's like, don't even start. Don't want to go there. And then he kind of got asked again after the game, and he had the same reaction, like, don't go there. Don't ask me. And that is obvious. Even if he was called, he's not going to tell you. And it's possible he hasn't been called by Jarmo Kekalainen, because it's possible that Lindy Ruff is just going to continue throughout the entirety of the season, although I still would want to bet against right now that Lindy finishes the year and that he would get kicked upstairs in some other role. Associate general manager is now available. I don't think Lindy would want to be doing Amerks GM work and building the AHL team. I don't think that's the grind maybe he's looking for. But there is an opening in the front office. Maybe Eric Stahl's job is open. I would hope that that's the case. But anyways, Tortorella, I saw a lot of reaction to the clip that went, viral by Sabre Twitter standards of Tortorella kind of blasting, or however you want to put it, criticizing a play that Tage Thompson made on one of the first Philadelphia Flyer goals early in that game. I believe actually it was the Flyers' first goal. I think it was the Noah Cates goal that Bobby Brink had set him up on, because Brink was the one that had got behind Tage. They were kind of engaged in a 50-50 battle along the boards, or Brink kind of had the puck, but Tage had really good positioning, and he lost that positioning to a guy that is a foot shorter than him. And Tortorella on the intermission report was like, you can't have that happen. Your best player in his own zone, who is also your biggest player, cannot get worked in a battle like that, to Bobby Brink. And I think a lot of people saw that and went, oh, there's Torts. He would bench Tage in that situation. And maybe he would. Maybe he would bench Tage in that situation. And I would tell you that if that would be what that would lead to, I would not like that. I would not love that, and that is part of the risk of bringing in a John Tortorella, is I don't want you benching Tage Thompson for a play in his defensive zone like that, even if it did result in a goal against you. Because guess what? If you had benched him, maybe he's not there to score the goal to tie it up later in the second period. So don't love the benching idea. But if that's just simply, hey, this is what Tortorella would be like as a coach, where he'll point that out in a video session or in the locker room during an intermission or in a post game. And like, what do you really want? Do you want your coach to hold guys accountable? I don't need that to be benching, but to me, what that certainly would need to be is pointing out when a mistake like that is made and not being afraid to point it out, regardless of who made the mistake, no matter how good the player is. Again, I don't want you to bench him, but certainly it's worthwhile to point out to Tage Thompson, you cannot get beat on the wall like that by a player that is that small, much smaller than you, when you're giving him that avenue to kind of cut to the middle of the ice and find a teammate for a quality scoring chance. There was no reason that scoring chance ever need to happen in the first place. So if that's how Tortorella is as a coach, then I'm good with that. Just don't let it lead to benching Tage Thompson in the middle of games when you need him to score goals. So, we could look at Tortorella as an idea, and I think it is worthwhile having a serious conversation about it, because he's not said he's retired that I have seen. He has this work history with Kekalainen. They were together from 2015 to 2021, so a long time in Columbus. And listen, they made the playoffs 4 years in a row. They won one playoff series. They kind of won another one. They beat Toronto in that qualifying round, which was like kind of the first round in the COVID year. But they had made the playoffs together 4 years in a row. They had a 108-point season. They had a 97-point season. They had a 98-point season. And then the COVID one was 81 points in 70 games. So they were on track to probably finish in the 90s again. So 4 consecutive years that we're likely going to finish somewhere in the 90s and maybe even into the mid-high 90s. They have a good history together. So it's worthwhile talking about him. It is also worth bringing up Philadelphia, because that is the most recent work history you have from Torts. He was in Philly for 3 years and never made the playoffs. His highest point total was 87 points, which he had in the 23-24 season. He had 75 points in year one, and he was at 65 points in 73 games, probably going to be his worst record as Flyers head coach. Honestly, it was kind of pushing being his worst record ever as a head coach. He only needed a couple more wins to beat what he did in his early days in Tampa Bay, but it certainly was not going well for Tortorella in Philadelphia. Now, do I want to think he's toast, he's gone as an idea because it didn't work in Philly. You heard me the other day mention that I don't really think Philly has a very good roster. It's one of the few teams in the league that I see as having lower level talent than the Buffalo Sabres even do. They do not have high-end, elite level talented players at the top of their lineup. They have guys that are pretty good, like Travis Konechny and Trevor Zegras, but they don't have those elite guys at the top. And they don't even have a franchise goalie. So with that, I think it would be hard for anybody, including John Tortorella, to go in and get results in Philadelphia. But it is worth looking at that tenure and saying he probably doesn't have the same level of energy that he had when he was in, of course, Tampa, when he was in New York, when he was in his early days in Columbus. I could go to YouTube right now and look up John Tortorella angry moments and see all the passion, see the locker room, blasting guys in New York, or when he's getting into it with Larry Brooks in the media, the late Larry Brooks, when he's yelling at guys in Tampa Bay, Vancouver. He tried to break into the Calgary locker room after they had a brawl in the first period. Like, that guy has mellowed a little, and that's natural. He is 67 years old, and it mellowed a little bit in Philly. The only thing I ever saw in Philly that represented this guy's still a crazy person was when he got ejected from a game. I think this was last year by referee Wes McCauley, and Tortorella refused to leave the bench. He stood there on the bench for several minutes. He ended up getting suspended because of that, but he refused to leave. Other than that, the only thing I really found about his time in Philly that represented, this dude is Torts, he's a maniac, was he really got into it with Cam York. And that was towards the end of his Philadelphia tenure. Cam York, a former first-round pick of the Flyers, young player. He's a defenseman who has not really ever broken through in the NHL, never had a great season, but was a 20-minute-a-night guy, 20-plus minute-a-night guy playing in the top four. And he got benched, and there was something that happened behind the scenes between him and Tortorella. And again, you could kind of go to every team and probably find at least one example of that with him. And there was one of those in Philly. So however much he might have mellowed, it didn't happen fully, and there still is a Torts in there because he refused to leave the bench during an ejection, and he did get into it with one of their talented players in the lineup. So that comes with risk. You're going to get probably an outcome at some point where, Tage is pissed, and him and Tortorella are at odds. Or maybe it's not Tage. Maybe it's Alex Tuck. Maybe it is Dahlin. Maybe it is Owen Power. I think a lot of Sabre fans could probably envision something like that, where Power, one of your more talented guys and a good player, but he definitely is lacking that fight, that internal fire. That drives Tortorella nuts, as it does a lot of fans, and something happens off of that, whether it's Tortorella benching him or screaming at him and him not taking it well. Like, you might not always get the outcome you want when a guy is like that. Sometimes guys don't react well to that type of pushing and that type of coaching. But it does come with its merit. And I'm at a point now, just to kind of summarize where I'm at. I've hated the Tortorella idea for a decade. And it always comes up once in a while when he was available before Columbus, when he was available after Columbus. Like, every once in a while, the Tortorella idea comes up. And I'm always like, no. It's a bad idea. It's a bad idea. I'm more open to it right now than I ever have been. It's not my favorite idea. I'd like the Pete DeBoer idea better. I almost kind of like the idea of Mike Leone better as the Amerks head coach, getting an ascension to NHL head coach for Buffalo. It's not my favorite idea either, because I would like to see them do something that rates. But I'm more open to the Tortorella idea than I ever have been. And part of it is, I do think he's mellowed a little bit. I don't think he's the nutcase that he once was. I do think he's probably a good coach overall. And the worst part about Torts from his results as a head coach is eventually the message gets stale, players get sick of him, and it ends poorly. Eventually that happens. But the one thing you can't really argue with is everywhere he goes, most places he goes, you're going to get results right away. You're going to get that early bump from Tortorella coming in. That is something that happened in Columbus. I guess the one place it really didn't happen was Philadelphia. It happened in New York. There are a lot of circumstances over the years where he comes in, you get some good results in the first 2 years. And then maybe year 3, even you go pretty well. By the time you get to the 4th or 5th year, it's like, this is not going well. That the players are done with it. It will exhaust itself. But for this team, he's 67. He's not going to be hanging around for 6-7 years anyway. If you're looking for short term, get me in the playoffs, get this team on the right track, get these guys on the right track in terms of competing on a night-to-night basis, a 1 or 2 year Tortorella experiment, to me, is not the worst idea. And it has very often come off to me as the worst idea. But I think where this team is right now, where they are in their development, a lot of their most important players have been around for years and years now, that this would be the right circumstance to try it out if you ever were going to. So I didn't think the Tage clip was, oh, I can't hire that guy. Look how much he's going after Tage Thompson. I think that's probably how he's going to coach Tage Thompson. And as long as that doesn't come with a benching, I'm open to this as an idea. I want to get to a couple other things from the Philly game, and then we'll look ahead to the Islander game. That's coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by Game Time. I mean, nice little early afternoon or early evening game tonight. You want to go check it out, see maybe another win? Head over to the Game Time app, and it's not just hockey or football. How about the World Cup? World Cup is coming back to North America first time in 30 plus years. And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hard part. I've been looking to get tickets this tournament. It's hard. That's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, buy tickets the moment they hit the app. You get alerts for that. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of what it can seem like, which is definitely impossible. You pull up the app. Layout makes it so simple. Scroll through matchups, compare seat views. Again, if you want to set an alert for when a game hits this price, and then you get notified immediately. You pick a game, you can tap a section, have your tickets locked within minutes. No confusion, no hunting for the fine print. Seat view features a game changer, especially all these new added seats. Like if you're going up in Toronto and they're adding seats that have never existed there before, and you might not know what that looks like, Seat View app feature is a very, very significant part of the Game Time app. So take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets, every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off at Game Time. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. The Sabres beat the Philadelphia Flyers to extend their win streak to 4. Might not feel like a 4-game win streak, but they are on a 4-game win streak. And I have to say, as somebody that bet as our bet of the night, minus a goal and a half against the Philadelphia Flyers, I watched that first period and into the early second period, first half of the second period, first really 20, 30 minutes of the game. And I did not like what I was seeing. They were tied at the end of the first, and they never got down more than 1 goal. But I thought the Flyers looked like the better team, significantly the better team, for the first half of that hockey game. They controlled a lot of the pace. They controlled a lot of the possession. They had a majority of the chances. I mean, the Sabres had like 3 shots on goal, 4 shots on goal at the end of the first period. They were not really getting many chances, many shots near the net at all. They weren't really testing Sam Ersson, who was a bad goaltender. And I thought Philly looked like the better team. They looked like the more energized team, which was definitely frustrating to see at the start because we knew the Sabres had, 1, you would hope a Jarmo bump, and 2, not having played since the weekend. They had multiple days of rest. You were at home. There was no reason to start slow like that. But they hung around. They hung around. They get that goal by Jack Quinn in the first period to take the lead, and they kind of backed off from there. The Thompson goal was a nice play. They had gotten down 2-1 at that point. The Cam York, who we previously mentioned, the guy who got into it with Tortorella last year, he scored to make it 2-1. And then Thompson, who I did not think had a good game up until that point. I thought he was pretty rough. Good little play. Dahlin cutting to the middle, that drop pass between the legs while taking the defender with him to open it up for Tage Thompson and kind of get that defenseman on a spin cycle. And Tage makes a nice move there. Instead of just ripping it right away when Ersson would have been in position, that little push the puck out to the center and kind of get the goalie moving a little bit is what opens up that side of the net where he ends up scoring on it. So a nice goal by Tage and a great play overall from Dahlin to him. The Noah Ostlund goal, he's not been getting a lot of shots through. He's only got 23 shots on goal in 22 games, but I like his shot. I think he's got a nice release. Now, this is one where you needed some help. There was traffic in front, and you got a bad goalie there that you probably wanted to save from if you're Philly. But nice little play by Ostlund. I've liked that line a lot. Him skating around with Alex Tuch and Josh Norris, playing in the top six, playing more so on the wing than he had been at the beginning of the year because, of course, when Norris was hurt, he had to play center. Tage was playing on the wing. He had to play center. This is now him playing on the wing, but he should be staying in the lineup. And to get that goal in the final minute to take the lead going into the third period, that seemed to energize them. And when a young guy like that scores, when he's playing in a big role, he's back on the team, everyone likes to see that. And from that point on, I thought the Sabres were the better team. They looked completely different from the first 30 minutes of the game. They were awesome in the third period. They were buzzing. They had a lot of control of the puck. Like the first 3 minutes of the third period, they had as many shots in that 3-4 minutes as they had in the entire first period. More than that, I think. They were buzzing around the Philadelphia net. The Flyers just seemed out of gas by the time we got to the third period. So the Sabres had survived that onslaught in the first two periods and then really took control in the third. And the Norris play on the power play, what a goal by Norris. Great pass by Zach Benson, who comes away with 2 assists on the night. Nice saucer pass all the way across to get it to Norris, who's all alone with Ersson. And that is a skilled goal. It kind of is almost a version of what Tage did earlier, where you push the puck out of your stance a little bit to get the goalie moving the way you want. Tage had done that to open up the side of the net. Norris had done this to open up the 5-hole. Norris with that little, he does it kind of a little smoother than Tage had. This one motion, push it out and kind of wrap your stick to slide it through the 5-hole, which you had opened up by kind of making that motion in the first place. That was a clean play by Josh Norris. On the power play, his third of the year, got Benson his second assist, and that puts you up 2 goals with 10 minutes to go. I felt right then and there, the way they had played in the first 10 minutes, that it was going to be over from that point. The tough thing is, though, the Sabres got trapped in their own end for, it was like 3 minutes in the middle of that third period where Power is stuck on the ice and Tuch was stuck on the ice, and they couldn't get out of their zone. They could not. They also were trying not to take a penalty, so it didn't feel like they were really pushing Philadelphia all that much. And eventually they roll around in your zone like that long enough, they're going to find one. So I felt like Philly, it kind of was a one-shift period for them. It was a long shift. It was like 3 minutes of control, but that was the only point in the entire third period where I felt like they were really all that threatening. But still, you're only up 1 then at that point, and you get the empty netter with like 8 seconds to go by Ryan McLeod. So all in all, I look back on that game, and I see a game where, all right, like it looks pretty even on the scoreboard. A lot of it, the shots on goal, a lot of the possession numbers, the shooting attempts. It was a very much, though, a tale of two halves. I think the Flyers were the better team in the first half of the game. The Sabres were the better team in the second half of the game. There wasn't a lot of back and forth. It was Flyers dominated, then the Sabres dominated. But Sabres got the better of the looks, and they also got the better goaltending night. I don't think Lyon was amazing. He allowed 3 goals on 27 shots. Some of those goals, I would say, were like maybe 1 or 2 of them were not his fault, but I wouldn't say he was fantastic. Ersson, though, is a bad goalie. He's a bad goalie, and the Sabres definitely got the better of him on the night. So good win over Philadelphia, and that's a team that you're chasing, right? Like they're in the final wild card spot right now. The Sabres are 6 points down from Philadelphia. I think the Atlantic is still the better place to look because you're 6 points back of second and third and 7 points back of first with 2 games in hand. But Philly's one of the teams that you would like to not allow to get any points while you're going through this streak either. So 34 points in 33 games after the win against the Flyers. They've not really made up a lot of ground with this 4-game win streak. And part of that is the Panthers are on a 4-game win streak of their own. And who else? Detroit's been a lot better in the last couple of weeks. Now they're at the top. Boston continues to kind of play just above 500 hockey. So you don't really have anyone collapsing right now. But I guess what the good news is you're hanging around. You're just hanging around, and that 4-game win streak has allowed them to kind of hang around here. When we come back, another team they're chasing that's in a playoff spot. Tonight's opponent, the New York Islanders. What I see in the Islanders, my bet of the night, all ahead, coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Sabres presented by FanDuel. When I get to my bet of the night, that'll be courtesy of FanDuel Sportsbook, at least the odds of it. So hockey is rolling right now. Live betting with the NHL is a lot of fun. Football, of course, as well. You got football Saturday and Sundays. Big plays, everything feeling different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you are reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you could place bets as the action is unfolding. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is the best when you get a game that's starting to shift. Again, like this hockey game the other day between Buffalo and Philadelphia, where you could kind of tell when the tide started to turn in the other direction. And then maybe right then and there, you would have been pretty confident. Okay, here comes Buffalo. Let me throw a bet on them. And you would have been right. Live spreads, money lines adjusting instantly, player props updating as guys are heating up, all available at FanDuel. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com, place your live NFL bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Wrapping things up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast with a quick preview of Sabres and Islanders. The New York Islanders, who are sitting in a playoff spot, 19-13-3 in 35 games played. That's 2 more games played than the Buffalo Sabres. They are 7 points ahead of Buffalo, and they are in one of those wild card positions. So if you were to beat them in regulation, you would be 5 points back with 2 games in hand. All right. The Islanders are similar to me in the Philadelphia Flyers, where those are the 2 teams at the moment that I would most expect to drop out of playoff positions. The Islanders, the one thing I will say that is a little different about them this year, but I wouldn't say it's not a wholesale change. Like, in essence, the Islanders, I think, are still pretty much what they've been for years, which is a nose to the grindstone, outwork you type of team that is not really loaded with elite level talent. Punching above their weight, kind of like Philadelphia I mentioned the other day. The one thing that has changed a bit on that is that they definitely have one more elite level player today than they had last season, and the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that. Matthew Schaefer is great. The number 1 overall pick of the 2025 NHL draft on the blue line. He is a good player. And he's going to be, I think, a Norris-level defenseman at the top of the sport for a long time. And maybe in that tier with Cale Makar, Rasmus Dahlin, and Quinn Hughes. I think Schaefer is that good. So far this year, he's playing all the big minutes. I mean, some of his most recent games played 26 minutes against Detroit, 26-16 against the Lightning, 25-19 against Anaheim, 28-14 against the Vegas Golden Knights. He's playing monster minutes. He is currently 3rd on the team in points, 23 points in 35 games. He has 9 goals on the season. He's their number 1 defenseman, and he's a fun player. He is a good skater. He has got good puck skills. This will be number 48. This will be your first chance to see him. If you have not yet or really watched a lot of the Islanders, he's an impressive player. And I think he'll jump off the page to you immediately. Like, you'll see, like, oh, who's that defenseman that the Islanders got? Because they have not been a team with guys like that. Like, it's been, I think that Matthew Barzal has kind of been on an island for a lot of years here, as like, that's the one dude that terrifies me offensively. Like, Bo Horvat's a good player, and he's having an insane season. He's got 19 goals already this year, one of the leaders in the NHL. He's been a good offensive player for a long time. But Barzal has been the only one that has ever been to me like, this dude's got star-level talent. And I've always thought that if he was on another team that opened things up a little bit more, that instead of 85 points being his career high, he would have a 100-point season somewhere in there on a team that kind of allowed him to play a little bit more freely. And maybe they're starting to do that now. But certainly all those Lou Lamoriello years, the style that they used to play, didn't always invite the biggest offensive numbers in that sort of style. Barzal's great. Schaefer adding to him, and with Horvat having the year he has, like they've got three dudes at the top of the lineup that are really contributing offensively in ways that they haven't always had. Although Barzal has been there a long time at this point. He's always been there. So that's the Islanders right now. Still, though, I look at the totality of their lineup, and I see a team that is still lacking that high-end firepower. A depth of it, I should say, because I do like their top three guys. But still rolling around there with Anders Lee and Gabriel Pajot playing big roles, and Jonathan Drouin's playing in their top six. Anthony Duclair, like some of these like guys that are like so throughout their careers when it comes to really putting the puck in the back of the net. But team defense overall, and kind of the overall style that they've been for a long time, there are still a lot of those shades of that in their lineup throughout this entire season. So I think, though, when you look at the Islanders, they are definitely gettable in the way that Philadelphia was the other night. I think there's a reason the Sabres are favored by as much as they are in this game. Minus 184. Bigger favorite than they were against Philadelphia. It's a big favorite. Minus 184 against the New York Islanders. I meant to look at this before I got rolling here. I want to check, though, as part of that reason, did they play last night? And they did. So that would be another reason why, obviously, then the Sabres be favored by as much as they were. They played yesterday in Vancouver, and they have a 5 o'clock game today. So that probably makes up the difference between the minus 140 the Sabres were against Philadelphia and the minus 180 they were against the Islanders. I think if they had not played last night, they probably would look around like minus 140, the same favorite they were against the Philadelphia Flyers. Some of their numbers on the season, the Islanders in Corsi for percentage. What percentage of the shot attempts did they have in a game relative to their opponent? They rank 22nd in the National Hockey League this year. What percentage of the shots do they have on the year? They rank 20th. Expected goals for percentage on the season, they are 27th, which is even a lot lower than Philadelphia was. So this is a team I think the Sabres are better than. They don't have the better results this season, but another game that I would expect that you got to win this one. You're at home. They played last night. They're not as good as their record. So that's what I'm looking at for tonight's game against the New York Islanders. I like the Sabres to win this hockey game, and I think I'd be disappointed if they did not. And one last quick check real quick. David Rittich is also going to be between the pipes. Another factor as to why the Islanders are such big underdogs in this game. Ilya Sorokin, clearly runaway number one goalie for them. He's been great for years. Rittich has been fine this year. He started 11 games, got a .905 save percentage. So you are getting a backup goalie, but maybe not one of the worst backup goalies in the NHL. My bet of the night, before we wrap things up here, bet of the night, I'm going to go with the under 6.5 goals. I know you're getting Rittich tonight, and the Sabres goalie can be kind of up and down so far this year, but you give me under 6.5 goals in a game involving the New York Islanders at minus 124, I'm going to take that almost every day of the week, even if they have a backup goalie in there. And at its core, it's kind of how both teams want to play, right? The Sabres, they just scored 5 the other night, right? Like, and they can score, but they're trying to be a team that has played like the Islanders have played. So I got one team that's trying to play a game like that. I have another team that has a lot of experience playing a game like that. And when your over-under is at 6.5, I'm going to take the under. All right, that's going to do it for us today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We'll see. Maybe next time we're talking to you, it's in the middle of a 5-game winning streak. One can hope. You want to be a part of our Locked On Sabres Everydayers Club. You can have fun with the game on our live Discord as well. Head over to lockedonsabres.supercast.com. You get ad-free versions of the show as well. Maybe it's a nice little stocking stuffer holiday present for someone that you that loves the Sabres. So check it out. Head over there, sign up, and jump into our Discord and have some fun with it. We'll talk to you on Monday, ideally after another win here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network.